private ownership and market economy have long been considered hallmarks of capitalism. While this view is extremely prevalent and endorsed by various textbooks, I want to challenge it today. The reason is simple. Ancient Greece and Rome, which had private property rights and markets, did not enter the capitalist age, and some dictators who did not respect private property or markets could still promote capitalism. So what exactly is capitalism? To answer this, we need to start with our daily lives. Today, we are accustomed to working and receiving wages, but the wage system appeared very late. Medieval artisans were lifelong partners. Before each job, they would determine the profit-sharing ratio for different positions, and after completion, they would divide all the income according to the pre-agreed agreement. This approach satisfies everyone while sharing the risks. Machine changed that. With more advanced tools, the difficulty has significantly decreased. Veteran craftsman is no longer important. Ordinary people can learn quickly with just a short training period. Factory owners can use flexible hiring, offer only short-term contracts, and lay off workers when the market is down or tools are upgraded. I'm not saying all factory owners are bad people. They also face a serious challenge. Buying and operating machines costs. Ancient tools were mostly simple and inexpensive, like saws and looms, which every family could own and didn't require expensive energy costs. They sell their surplus products in the market to get other goods. This is the WGW model. Produce goods, exchange them for money, and then exchange them for another type of goods. Industrialization destroyed this way of life. Once a product can be mass-produced, its unit price drops, easily defeating all small-scale crafts in the market. However, a significant amount of time and money must be spent before production begins. Industry improves efficiency, that is, the ratio of output to cost, but on the other hand, cost also increases. To obtain sufficient funds before production, one must borrow money or find ways to get investment. This is the GWG model. First spend money, then produce goods, sell them, and obtain more money. Profits are then reinvested in production to earn even more profits, forming a cycle of capital. We can see that employment, capital circulation, and industrialization form the iron triangle of capitalism. They are mutually causal and have shaped the world we live in today. Investment in one party is liability in another. Therefore, capitalism can also be called liabilitism. Increasing profits has become the most important task, regardless of the means. Technological progress has eliminated the scarcity of many skills. Minimalist design, while reducing the cost of living, has also increased employees' tolerance for low wages. Colonialism and globalization destroyed natural economy and supplied the market with more cheap labor, further reducing the wage. However, mass production of replicas, rather than limited edition luxury goods, requires the purchasing power of the masses rather than the luxurious lifestyle of a few wealthy individuals. Various cost-cutting and profit-increasing methods destroy societal purchasing power, inevitably leading to unsold products. Individual companies naturally won't voluntarily raise wages, because that would harm themselves while potentially benefiting other companies. Therefore, destroying products to achieve a short-term price rebound is the only option. Attempts to reform capitalism by improving the lives of workers are doomed to failure. Whether through unions, collective bargaining, or legislation to raise wages, insurance, or reduce working hours, may stimulate consumer spending in the short term. However, the already increased wages could fall back to low levels due to inflation. Companies can upgrade automation or relocating production lines. Moreover, those workers that could exert pressure on employers through strikes were only shortage occupations. Employees without scarcity had no power to strike, yet they needed better pay even more. Thus, strikes gradually evolved into a privilege enjoyed only by union members, but made life inconvenient for non-union members, causing divisions within the proletariat. Cooperatives may not lay off employees, but they must reduce wages, take out loans to upgrade production lines to maintain competitiveness, and even outsource production, as we often see. In this way, cooperatives become no different from ordinary enterprises, with members becoming shareholders and outsourced companies becoming their piece-rate employees. If we cannot get rid of the employment relationship and the capital cycle, we cannot get rid of capitalism and all its ills. It doesn't matter who owns capital. It can be an individual, a group of shareholders, or a country. State capitalism, which was given high hopes in the last century, is also a typical example of failure. Whether it was Lenin, Mussolini, or Keynes, although they had completely different political views, their understanding of economics was similar, making the state the largest capitalist and employer, even the largest buyer. The government has more power and stronger ability to allocate resources than ordinary enterprises, giving it a significant advantage in organizing large-scale projects like infrastructure. Our cities today also follow the logic of capitalism. Subways are far more efficient than highways. Their construction and operation costs are also far higher. Therefore, a large amount of investment is required before construction. The municipal government has far more power, funds, and credit than ordinary private enterprises, making it easier to raise large amounts of funds. However, if the subway planning is flawed, debt defaults may directly lead to the bankruptcy of the municipal government. In other words, greater power only leads to greater debt and greater risk, but does not allow one to escape the cycle of capital. To fill the debt hole, one must either rely on war and plunder or sell off state-owned assets and return to liberalism. Having the power to issue currency is futile. Relying solely on printing money to meet ever-increasing investment demands when investments cannot be recovered in the long run will only cause the currency to lose its credibility. Debt is securitized credit. Concealing debt crisis cannot eliminate credit crisis. It will only manifest itself in other ways. Furthermore, state capitalism merges capitalism with state power, greatly enhancing the power of capital and weakening labor in negotiations. Sometimes labor's negotiating power is even violently stripped away. We all hope to avoid monopoly manipulating public power, and therefore we should also be wary of governments becoming monopoly. Feeling powerless against the status quo, people pinned their hopes on a return to the past, directly opposing industrial production and attempting to revert to an era of small proprietor. This idea was particularly prevalent in the arts, as artists are typical petty bourgeoisie. They fantasize about a simple society where everyone is a small farmer or artisan, vehemently denigrating mass-produced item and imbuing traditional handicrafts with various cultural, philosophical, and even metaphysical meanings. But the result is merely the inflated prices of these handcrafted products, creating new forms of capitalist fraud. Moreover, the art is inevitably becoming industrialized. Of course, natural economy does have its appeal. Although small farmers earn less, their expenses are also low, and they have no pressure to repay loans. Their production primarily serves their own needs. Any surplus is exchanged in the market or given to neighbors. The markets are small and do not rely on fiat currency, barter, or transactions using some kind of physical commodity as a medium are sufficient. This is why countries with a large number of smallholders are able to weather economic crises more smoothly. Their rural areas can serve as a safe haven for the unemployed. Market price fluctuations have little impact on small farmers, whose production, intended for use, is not price sensitive. However, if production is solely for sale, they cannot withstand price drops. Capitalism makes us completely dependent on the market, to the point that many mistakenly consider a market economy to be a characteristic of capitalism. Industry isolates every tiny step of production, making workers learn and work faster, and more easily replaced by machines. Industrial output far exceeds individual needs and must be sold on the market. Every factory is inseparable from the market, requiring suppliers and customers. Employees cannot directly obtain what they need. Instead, they complete small steps, receive corresponding compensation, and then buy necessities at the market. Finally, the circulation of capital must rely on free markets and credit money because capital itself, whether expressed in stocks, bonds, funds, or any other form, is essentially an IOU, tangible securitized credit and hope, that can be sold and settled piecemeal. In the GWG model, commodity production is no longer the goal. Capital appreciation is. Once capitalists realize this, they gradually abandon intermediate steps, leading us to the final stage of capitalism, the GG model, where money and stocks, bonds, and other currencies are exchanged back and forth. One IOU is replaced with another. Margaret Thatcher's advocacy of popular capitalism essentially involved the masses in this gamble. However, the meaning of the free market she relied on had also changed. The pioneers of classical economics discovered the underlying laws of the market and pointed out that utilizing absolute and comparative advantages could enable society to achieve full specialization and increase overall productivity. However, the GG model fails to leverage any production advantages. A great amount of capital doesn't flow into production, but instead is used as consumer loans or exchanged for other forms of financial products. The only function of the free market here is to encourage wider participation, inflating the bubble and ensuring that more people bear the losses when it bursts. Ironically, this boosts consumption power in a short term. When people fantasize that their stocks or real estate will continue to appreciate, they reduce their savings, consume without restraint, or even take out loans, until credit is abused to the point of overdraft. The division of labor is no longer fixed. Market prices fluctuate constantly, but the repayment remains constant, making flexible staffing more advantageous. People who cannot obtain stable expectations from their jobs are gambling in the capital market while trying out multiple careers. Capitalism makes this possible by constantly simplifying work and the time required for training, but at the same time, it makes each job only poorly paid. This creates a cycle where technological progress makes work more accessible, income decreases, workers look for new jobs, and companies try to reduce the difficulty of new jobs. This is the root of our current confusion, but also the possibility of ushering in a new era. Because various qualification is lower, we may prioritize producing for self-sufficiency. Fab Lab is a great attempt, but it can only use some small machines because its funding comes almost entirely from donations. Today's equipment is efficient but expensive, priced beyond individual affordability, and its output far exceeds individual needs. Purchasing it with loans and selling the product would only lead back into the capitalist vortex. The only solution is everyone contribute a small amount and convert it into usage time, that is, rent. In this way, we can also be like smallholders, producing for ourselves first and freely disposing of the surplus. We can form cooperation when necessary and hire people to help. In fact, temporary workers were also often used in natural economy. However, the hired workers did not worry about unemployment because they were just using their spare time to earn some pocket money after meeting their own needs. Moreover, they had more bargaining power because they were dealing with individuals or families rather than companies or governments. In addition, every citizen receives a certain amount from the annual fiscal budget, which is used to buy equipment. Since the funds are from the state, everything purchased also belongs to the state. Therefore, the funds do not flow into the capital market or consumer goods, but only to purchase machinery for rental. In this way, the people gain the power to make budgets like political and business elites, but do not receive monetary benefits, only enjoying the convenience brought by the upgrade of the production line. My proposed solution is certainly not perfect, and my description of capitalism may not be comprehensive. But at least I won't rely on slogans or inciting hatred to solve the problem. I hope everyone can participate in this discussion that concerns us all. If you have any idea, please feel free to share it in the comment.